I snagged a slouchy blazer from a thrift store. Perfect fit, killer deal. That night, it rustled in my closet like it was alive. Next morning, it was sprawled over my chair. I live alone. No explanation. And that was just the start. You won't believe what happened to me last week. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I have to share this with anyone, because if I don't, I might just lose my mind. It all started with a simple shopping trip. You know how it is. You're browsing through a thrift store, looking for that one quirky find, and then you spot it, a slouchy blazer, oversized, effortlessly chic, the kind that makes you feel like you've got your life together even when you don't. It was perfect. Or so I thought. The blazer was a steal, tucked away in the back of the store, almost like it was waiting for me. The tag was missing, and it had this faint, musty smell, like it had been stored away for years. I didn't think much of it, thrift stores, right? You take what you can get. I brought it home, hung it up in my closet, and went about my day. That night, though, something strange happened. I was in bed, half asleep, when I heard a soft rustling sound coming from the closet. I told myself it was nothing, just the house settling, but when I got up to check, there it was, the blazer, crumpled on the floor, like it had fallen. Except I know I hung it securely. I brushed it off, blamed it on a loose hanger, and went back to bed. But the next morning, it was out again, draped over the back of my chair, as if it had moved on its own. My heart skipped a beat. I live alone, no pets, no roommates, nothing to explain this. And that's when I started to feel it, this creeping sense that something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the blazer wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was something else. I didn't want to believe it at first. I mean, who would? But that was just the beginning. What happened next would change everything, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this. The next morning, I woke up bleary-eyed, chalking the whole thing up to too much caffeine and not enough sleep. I mean, who hasn't misplaced a jacket, right? I shuffled to the kitchen, brewed my usual pot of sludge, and there it was, draped over the back of my chair like it was waiting for me. That slouchy blazer, with its soft, droopy shoulders and deep charcoal gray fabric, looking all innocent. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips, because I knew I hadn't left it there. I live alone, darlings, no roommates, no sneaky pets with a fashion fetish. Just me and my questionable life choices. I laughed it off, nervously, mind you, because what else do you do? Oh, hilarious. I muttered to myself, I'm sleepwalking now, styling my furniture in the dead of night. I grabbed it, marched it back to the closet, and shoved it onto a hanger. Stay put, you little drama queen. I told it like it was a naughty toddler. Then I went about my day. Work, errands, the usual chaos, determined to forget the whole thing. But that night, it happened again. I was in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it, that same rustling sound, soft but insistent, like someone rifling through a pile of clothes. My heart did a little hop skip, and I told myself it was nothing. You're losing it, I whispered, pulling the covers up to my chin. But curiosity, oh, that wretched beast, got the better of me. I crept out of bed, tiptoed to the closet, and yanked the door open. Empty. The hanger swung gently, mocking me. I spun around, half expecting to see the blazer lounging on my couch with a glass of wine, but the room was still. Too still. And then I saw it, crumpled in the corner by my dresser, like it had crawled there on its own. My stomach dropped. This is not happening, I hissed, snatching it up and jamming it back into the closet. I slammed the door so hard the hinges rattled, then wedged a chair under the knob for good measure. Try me now, you oversized rag. I dared it, my voice shaking more than I'd care to admit. The next day, I was a wreck, jumpy, spilling coffee all over my desk, snapping at my coworker, who dared ask if I was okay. Fine, I barked, though I clearly wasn't. I kept replaying it in my head, the rustling, the blazer moving, that eerie feeling of being watched. I started wondering if I'd accidentally thrifted a possessed garment. Like, what if the previous owner had died in it, and now their restless spirit was haunting my wardrobe? Ridiculous, right? But I couldn't shake it. By the way, darlings, if you're loving this wild ride, and I know you are, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our little channel's growing faster than my pile of laundry, and I'd hate for you to miss the next twist in this saga. Trust me, it gets weirder. That evening, I came home armed with resolve. I decided to confront this nonsense head-on. I flung open the closet, grabbed the blazer, and held it up like I was interrogating a suspect. "What's your deal, huh?" I demanded, shaking it for emphasis. "You think you're cute, scaring me half to death?" It just hung there, limp and silent, mocking me with its innocence. I tossed it onto the couch, figuring I'd donate it back to the thrift store and be done with it. But as I turned away, I swear I felt something, a cold brush against my arm, like fabric grazing my skin. I whipped around and there it was, still on the couch, but shifted. Just slightly, like it had adjusted itself. My breath caught, and I backed away, heart hammering. "Nope," I said aloud. "Nope, nope, nope." I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door, leaving that blazer to its own devices. Whatever it was, I wasn't ready to face it, not yet. That night, I crashed at my friend Jenna's place. She's the practical type, the kind who doesn't believe in ghosts or haunted blazers. "You're stressed," she said, pouring me a glass of wine. "Work's been crazy. You're not sleeping well, and now you're imagining things. It's just a blazer." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just my imagination. "Maybe," I said, taking a sip. "But I'm telling you, Jenna, that thing moves on its own. It's like it has a mind of its own." She laughed, but I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Okay, fine. Let's go back to your place tomorrow, and I'll help you figure it out. Maybe there's a logical explanation." I agreed, but I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the blazer, wondering what it was doing back in my apartment. Was it still on the couch, or had it moved again? The thought made my skin crawl. The next morning, Jenna and I headed back to my place. I was half hoping the blazer would be gone, but when I opened the door, there it was, hanging neatly in the closet, like it had never left. Jenna raised an eyebrow. "See? It's just a blazer." I shook my head. "Wait until tonight. You'll see." We spent the day trying to distract ourselves, watching movies, ordering takeout, but as evening fell, the tension crept back in. I could feel it, that same eerie vibe, like the air was charged with something unnatural. Jenna tried to laugh it off, but I could tell she was uneasy too. That night, we decided to stay up and watch the closet. We sat on my bed, eyes glued to the door, waiting. Hours passed and nothing happened. I was starting to feel foolish. Maybe Jenna was right. Maybe I was just stressed. But then, around midnight, it started. That soft rustling sound, like fabric brushing against itself. Jenna's eyes widened. "What is that?" I didn't answer. I just pointed to the closet. Slowly, the door creaked open, and there it was, the blazer, sliding off the hanger and floating to the floor. Jenna gasped, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "See," I whispered. "It's not just me." Jenna jumped up, brave as ever, and marched over to the blazer. She picked it up, examined it, then hung it back up. "There must be a draft or something," she said, but her voice was shaky. We closed the closet door and sat back down, but the rustling started again, louder this time. The door swung open, and the blazer fell to the floor once more. Jenna's face went pale. "Okay, that's not normal." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I told you." We decided to leave the blazer on the floor and see what happened. For a while, nothing did. But just as we were starting to relax, I heard it, a faint whisper, like someone breathing. I looked at Jenna, and she heard it too. "What is that?" she whispered. I didn't know, but I had a feeling it was coming from the blazer. Slowly, I approached it, kneeling down to listen. The whisper grew louder, forming words I couldn't quite make out. It sounded like a voice, trapped and desperate. Suddenly, the blazer twitched, and I jumped back. Jenna grabbed my arm, pulling me away. "Let's get out of here," she said, her voice trembling. But I couldn't leave. I had to know what was going on. "Wait," I said, taking a deep breath. Maybe it's trying to tell us something. Jenna looked at me like I was crazy, but she didn't argue. Together, we watched as the blazer began to move again, sliding across the floor toward us. I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. What did it want? And why me? Jenna and I stood there, frozen, staring at the blazer as it twitched on the floor like it was alive. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Okay, that's it, I whispered, my voice barely holding steady. We need to figure out what's going on with this thing. Jenna nodded, her face pale. Agreed. But how? It's a blazer, not a person. It can't exactly tell us its life story. I glanced at the crumpled fabric, half expecting it to whisper again. Maybe it can, I said, the words sounding crazier out loud than they had in my head. Or maybe we can find out where it came from. The thrift store. Maybe they know something about who owned it before me. Jenna raised an eyebrow. You think the thrift store keeps records of haunted blazers? I shot her a look. Haunted? We're not saying that yet. But yeah, maybe they remember who donated it or something. It's worth a shot. She sighed, clearly not convinced but too spooked to argue. Fine. Let's go tomorrow. But if this turns into some horror movie cliché, I'm out. I forced a laugh, though my stomach was in knots. Deal. No clichés, I promise. The next morning, we headed back to the thrift store. It was a small, cluttered shop on the edge of town, the kind of place where forgotten treasures and weird knickknacks gathered dust. The bell above the door jingled as we stepped inside, and the smell of old books and mothballs hit me like a wave. Behind the counter was an older woman with silver hair and glasses perched on the tip of her nose. She looked up from her crossword puzzle and smiled. Welcome back. Find something else you like. I hesitated, suddenly feeling ridiculous. How do you ask about a possibly possessed blazer without sounding like a total nutcase? Actually, I bought a blazer here a few days ago. A slouchy one, gray, kind of vintage looking. I was wondering if you knew anything about it, like who donated it or where it came from. The woman's smile faltered, just for a second, but I caught it. She set down her pen and adjusted her glasses. Oh, that one. Yes, I remember it. It was part of a donation from an estate sale. The previous owner passed away recently, and her family brought in a bunch of her things. My stomach tightened. Passed away? Do you know how? She shook her head. I'm afraid not. The family didn't say much, just that it was sudden. They seemed eager to get rid of her belongings, though. Almost like they were in a hurry. Jenna and I exchanged a glance. That didn't sound good. Did they leave a name or anything? Jenna asked, her voice a little too casual. The woman thought for a moment. I think it was the Harlow family. They live out on the old road by the lake. Big house, kind of run down now. But that's all I know. I nodded, trying to keep my cool. Thanks, that's helpful. As we turned to leave, the woman called after us. Be careful with that blazer, dear. Some things, well, they carry more than just memories. I froze, my hand on the door. What do you mean? She shrugged, picking up her crossword again. Just a feeling. Sometimes, objects hold on to the past in ways we don't understand. Back at my apartment, the blazer was waiting for us, draped over the back of the couch like it had made itself at home. I swear, it looked smug. All right, you, I muttered, grabbing it and hanging it back in the closet. Stay. Jenna flopped onto the couch, rubbing her temples. So, what now? We tracked down the Harlow family and asked if their dead relative's blazer is haunted. I winced. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane, she shot back, but there was a hint of a smile. But hey, I'm in too deep now. Might as well see where this rabbit hole goes. I grinned, grateful for her loyalty. You're the best. Okay, let's see if we can find anything online about the Harlows. We spent the next hour huddled over my laptop, searching for any mention of the Harlow family. It didn't take long to find something, a local news article from a few months back. Local woman found dead in lake house. The headline read. My stomach churned as I clicked on it. The article was short, but chilling. Eleanor Harlow, 68, had been found dead in her home by the lake. The cause of death was listed as a heart attack, but there were whispers of foul play. Neighbors reported seeing strange lights in the house at night, and some claimed to have heard voices coming from inside, even after her death. The family had quickly sold off her belongings and left town. Jenna leaned back, eyes wide. Okay, that's creepy. So, the blazer belonged to a woman who might have been, what, murdered? And now it's haunting your closet? I shook my head. We don't know if she was murdered. The article says heart attack. Yeah, but the weird lights and voices? That sounds like ghost stuff. I couldn't argue with that. Maybe. Or maybe it's just small-town gossip. Either way, it's connected to her, and now it's in my house, moving around like it's got a mind of its own. As if on cue, a soft rustling came from the closet. We both froze, staring at the door. Slowly, it creaked open, and the blazer slid off the hanger, crumpling to the floor. But this time, it didn't stop there. It began to inch across the room, like something invisible was dragging it. Jenna grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. What the hell? I couldn't breathe. The blazer stopped in the middle of the room, and then, to our horror, it started to rise, as if someone was wearing it, standing up. The sleeves filled out, the shoulders squared, and for a split second, I could almost see the outline of a figure inside it. Then, just as quickly, it collapsed back to the floor. Jenna was already halfway to the door. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I'm out. But I couldn't move. Something about the way it had stood there, like it was trying to show me something, made me pause. Wait, I said, my voice shaky. I think it's trying to communicate. Jenna stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Communicate? It's a blazer, not a Ouija board. I know, but maybe Eleanor's spirit is attached to it or something. Maybe she needs help. Help with what? Scaring us to death. I ignored her, kneeling down beside the blazer. Up close, I could see the faint embroidery on the lapel, tiny, intricate stitches that formed a pattern I hadn't noticed before. It looked like a name, E. Harlow. Jenna, look at this, I said, pointing to the embroidery. It's her blazer, for sure. Maybe there's more to it. Jenna hesitated, then crouched beside me. Okay, fine. But if it starts floating again, I'm burning it. I couldn't help but laugh, though it came out more like a nervous giggle. Deal. We examined the blazer more closely, checking the pockets for any clues. In the inside pocket, I found a small, folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It was a note, written in shaky handwriting. They're watching. Don't trust anyone. Jenna's eyes widened. What the hell does that mean? I shook my head, a chill running down my spine. I don't know, but it sounds like Eleanor was in trouble before she died. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room grew colder. The blazer twitched again, and this time, I heard it, a faint whisper, like the one from before, but clearer now. Help me. Jenna and I locked eyes, both of us pale as ghosts. Did you hear that? I whispered. She nodded, her voice barely audible. Yeah. And I think it's time we got some expert help. That night, I couldn't sleep. The blazer was back in the closet, but I knew it wouldn't stay there. Jenna had gone home, promising to return in the morning with a plan. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then, around 2 a.m., I heard it again, the rustling. I sat up, heart racing, and saw the closet door slowly creak open. The blazer was moving, but this time, it wasn't just sliding across the floor. It was floating, drifting toward me like it was being worn by an invisible figure. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The blazer stopped at the foot of my bed, hovering there for a moment before collapsing onto the covers. And then, in the silence, I heard the whisper again, louder this time. Find the key. I couldn't stop thinking about that whisper. Find the key? It echoed in my mind all night, like a song stuck on repeat. By morning, I was bleary-eyed and jittery, but determined. Jenna and I sat at my kitchen table, the blazer spread out between us like a dissected frog in biology class. We need to search this thing thoroughly, I said, running my hands over the fabric. There has to be something we missed. Jenna nodded, though she looked skeptical. Like what? A hidden pocket with a map to buried treasure. I smirked. Or a key, maybe? She rolled her eyes, but started examining the blazer's seams. We turned it inside out, checking every inch. Just when I was about to give up, my fingers brushed against something hard in the lining near the collar. Wait, what's this? I said, feeling a small, solid object. I grabbed a pair of scissors and carefully snipped the stitches, revealing a tiny pocket. Inside was an old-fashioned key, the kind that might open a diary or a small lockbox. Jenna's eyes widened. Okay, that's freaky. How did we miss that before? I held the key up to the light, examining its intricate design. Maybe it only reveals itself when it wants to be found. I joked, though the thought sent a shiver down my spine. So, what does it open?
Jenna asked.
I thought back to the thrift store lady's words about the Harlow house. I think we need to pay a visit to Eleanor's old place.
Jenna groaned.
Of course we do. Because breaking into an abandoned, possibly haunted house is exactly how I wanted to spend my weekend. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Hey, you're the one who said you were in too deep. No backing out now. She sighed dramatically.
Fine.
But if I see one ghost, I'm screaming and running, and you're on your own. Deal, I said, though I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Before heading to the house, we decided to do some digging online. A quick search confirmed the Harlow house was still on the market, abandoned after Eleanor's death. The listing mentioned it was in need of TLC, which probably meant it was a wreck. There were also a few forum posts from locals, whispering about strange lights and sounds coming from the property at night.
Great.
Just what we needed. Looks like we're in for a real treat, Jenna said, reading over my shoulder. Think we should bring a crowbar? You know, for protection. I raised an eyebrow. Protection from what? Ghosts don't care about crowbars. She shrugged. Better safe than sorry. Plus, it might come in handy if the door's stuck. I couldn't argue with that. We packed a bag with flashlights, the crowbar, and, on Jenna's insistence, a bag of salt. Just in case, she said, winking. I didn't ask. By the time we arrived at the house, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the overgrown lawn. The place was even creepier than I'd imagined, a sprawling, two-story Victorian with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. The front door hung slightly ajar, as if daring us to enter. Welcoming, Jenna muttered, gripping the crowbar like a lifeline. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, and a musty smell wafted out, like old books and damp wood. We stepped inside, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The foyer was grand but decayed, with a chandelier hanging crookedly and dust coating every surface. All right, let's find whatever this key opens, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. We wandered through the house, checking doors and drawers, but most were unlocked or empty. The floorboards groaned under our feet, and every so often, a draft would whistle through the cracks, making the hairs on my neck stand up. Jenna kept glancing over her shoulder, like she expected something to jump out at us. Finally, at the end of a long hallway, we found a door that wouldn't budge. It was solid oak, with an old-fashioned lock. I pulled out the key, my hands trembling slightly. This has to be it. Jenna nodded, holding her flashlight steady. I inserted the key, and with a soft click, the lock turned. The door swung open, revealing a small study. It was like stepping into a time capsule. Bookshelves lined the walls, a mahogany desk sat in the center, and papers were scattered across the floor. This must have been Eleanor's private space. Jackpot, Jenna whispered, stepping inside. We started rifling through the desk drawers, finding old letters and photographs, but nothing that screamed clue. Then, on the desk, I spotted a leather-bound journal. My heart skipped a beat. Look at this. I opened it, and Eleanor's handwriting filled the pages. The entries were dated, starting a year before her death. At first, they were mundane notes about her garden, the weather, her favorite books. But as I flipped further, the tone shifted. I feel like I'm being watched, one entry read. Every time I leave the house, There's a car parked across the street. It's always the same one. Black sedan, tinted windows. I think they're following me. Another entry, dated a week later. I don't know who to trust anymore. Even my dear friend, who gave me this blazer, seems different lately. I think they're involved in something sinister. I need to be careful. Jenna leaned over my shoulder, reading along. Who gave her the blazer? I don't know, I said, scanning the pages for a name, but Eleanor never mentioned it. Maybe it's in here somewhere. As I turned another page, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. My breath fogged in front of me, and a faint whisper filled the air. You're close. Jenna grabbed my arm. Did you hear that? I nodded, my skin prickling. It's her. She's trying to guide us. Suddenly, a soft thud came from behind us. We whipped around, and there it was, the blazer, draped over the back of a chair, even though we'd left it at my apartment. Jenna yelped, nearly dropping her flashlight. How did it get here? I stared at it, my mind racing. I think Eleanor's spirit is tied to it. She's using it to communicate. Jenna backed toward the door. Okay, that's it. I'm officially freaked out. Can we leave now? But I couldn't tear myself away. Wait, there has to be more. She wants us to find something. I turned back to the journal, flipping to the last entry. It was dated the day before her death. I've found proof. They're planning something terrible, and I have to stop them. I've hidden the evidence in the boathouse. If anything happens to me, someone needs to know the truth. The boathouse, I murmured. That's where we need to go next. Jenna shook her head. No way. We're already pushing our luck here. Let's come back in the daylight or, better yet, call the police. But before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, like glass shattering. We both froze, hearts pounding. What was that? Jenna whispered. I swallowed hard. I don't know, but I think someone's here. The sound of heavy footsteps thudded up the stairs, slow and deliberate. Whoever or whatever it was, they were coming closer. Jenna's eyes widened in panic. We need to hide. I nodded, grabbing the journal and stuffing it into my bag. We darted behind a tall bookshelf, crouching low as the footsteps reached the hallway. My breath caught in my throat as the study door creaked open. A shadowy figure stepped into the room, their face obscured by the darkness. They paused, scanning the space, and for a terrifying moment, I thought they'd seen us. But then, they turned and left, the door clicking shut behind them. We stayed hidden for what felt like hours, too scared to move. Finally, when the house was silent again, Jenna whispered, "Who was that?" "I don't know," I said, my voice barely audible. "But I think they're looking for the same thing we are." Jenna and I stayed crouched behind the bookshelf for what felt like an eternity, our hearts pounding in sync. The house was silent again, but the air still felt thick with danger. "Do you think they're gone?" Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible. I strained my ears, listening for any sign of the intruder. "I don't know," I replied, "but we can't stay here forever. We need to get to the boathouse." Jenna shot me a look that screamed, "Are you insane?" But she nodded.
Fine.
"But if we die, I'm haunting you." I smirked despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "Deal." We crept out from behind the bookshelf, moving as quietly as possible. The study door was still ajar, and I peeked into the hallway. It was empty, but the shadows seemed to stretch and twist, playing tricks on my eyes. We tiptoed down the stairs, avoiding the creaky spots, and made it to the front door without incident. As we slipped outside, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The night was cool and still, the moon casting an eerie glow over the overgrown yard. The boathouse should be by the lake, I said, pointing toward a narrow path that wound through the trees. Jenna gripped her flashlight like a weapon. "Let's make this quick. I don't want to be here any longer than we have to." We hurried along the path, the crunch of leaves underfoot sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. The lake came into view, its surface like black glass, reflecting the skeletal trees. At the water's edge stood the boathouse, a small, weathered structure with a sagging roof and peeling paint. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I pushed open the door, and it groaned in protest. Inside, the air was damp and musty, with a faint smell of rot. Our flashlights swept over old fishing gear, a rusted motorboat, and stacks of moldy cardboard boxes. Where do we even start? Jenna muttered. Eleanor's journal said she had evidence here. I reminded her. Let's check those boxes. We began rummaging through the clutter, pulling out old newspapers, broken tools, and water-damaged books. Just when I was starting to lose hope, I spotted a small, locked chest tucked behind a pile of life jackets. My pulse quickened. Jenna, over here. She hurried over, and together we dragged the chest into the open. It was old, with rusted hinges and a sturdy lock. I pulled out the key we'd found in the blazer, my hands trembling. This has to be it. With a deep breath, I inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open, and I lifted the lid. Inside was a bundle of letters, a few photographs, and a small, leather-bound notebook. I grabbed the notebook first, flipping it open. It was filled with Eleanor's handwriting, but this time, it wasn't a journal. It was a log of dates, names, and cryptic notes. Look at this, I said, pointing to an entry. Meeting with Jay at the diner. He says they're watching me. Need to be careful. Jenna frowned. Who's Jay's? I scanned the pages, searching for a full name. Finally, I found it. Jonathan Harlow, my nephew. He's involved, but I don't know how deeply. I fear for him. Wait, her nephew? Jenna's eyes widened. So, the family might be part of whatever they are. I nodded, piecing it together. Maybe that's why they were so quick to get rid of her things. They didn't want anyone finding out. As I flipped through the notebook, a loose photograph slipped out. It was a picture of Eleanor standing next to a man in a suit, both smiling. But there was something off about the man's eyes. They were cold, calculating. On the back, in Eleanor's handwriting, was a single word. Beware. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed from outside the boathouse. We both froze, our flashlights snapping toward the door. What was that? Jenna whispered. I didn't answer, my heart racing. Then, footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approached the boathouse. Someone was coming. Hide, I hissed, and we scrambled behind a stack of crates just as the door swung open. A tall figure stepped inside, their face obscured by the shadows. They moved slowly, methodically, as if searching for something or someone. My breath caught in my throat as they drew closer to our hiding spot. Jenna's hand found mine, squeezing tight. I could feel her trembling, or maybe it was me. The figure paused, inches from the crates, and for a terrifying moment, I thought they'd found us. But then, they turned and headed toward the chest we'd left open on the floor. They knelt down, rifling through the contents, and I caught a glimpse of their face in the dim light. It was a man, middle-aged, with sharp features and a grim expression. He muttered something under his breath, then stuffed the notebook and letters into his coat pocket. As he stood, his gaze swept the room one last time. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't see us. Finally, he turned and left, the door slamming shut behind him. We waited a few agonizing minutes before daring to move. Who was that? Jenna whispered, her voice shaky. I don't know, I said, but he took the evidence. We need to follow him. Jenna stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Follow him? Are you crazy? He could be dangerous. He has the answers, I insisted. We can't let him get away with whatever Eleanor was trying to expose. Jenna sighed, clearly torn. Fine, but we're calling the police as soon as we figure out what's going on. Agreed, I said, though I wasn't sure if the police would believe us. We slipped out of the boathouse and crept along the path, keeping a safe distance from the man. He was heading back toward the main house, his pace brisk. As we followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking straight into a trap. Suddenly, the man stopped and turned, his eyes locking onto us. You, he barked, his voice rough and angry. What are you doing here? Jenna and I froze, caught like deer in headlights. We were just leaving, Jenna stammered. But the man wasn't buying it. He took a step closer, his hand reaching into his coat pocket. You've been snooping around, haven't you? Just like Eleanor. My blood ran cold. What do you know about Eleanor? He sneered. More than you, apparently. She thought she could stop us, but she was wrong. And now, you're going to end up just like her. Before I could react, he lunged at us, grabbing Jenna by the arm. She screamed, struggling to break free, but he was too strong. I looked around frantically for something to use as a weapon, but there was nothing, just dead leaves and twigs. Then, out of nowhere, a gust of wind swept through the trees, and I heard it, that familiar rustling sound. The blazer, which I'd left back at the house, was suddenly there, floating in the air between us and the man. It hovered for a moment, then shot forward, wrapping itself around the man's face like a shroud. He yelped, stumbling backward and releasing Jenna. She scrambled away, and I grabbed her hand, pulling her to safety. The man clawed at the blazer, trying to rip it off, but it clung to him like a living thing. "Run!" I shouted, and we bolted down the path, not daring to look back. We didn't stop until we reached my car, gasping for breath. What just happened? Jenna panted, her eyes wide with shock. I shook my head, just as bewildered. I think the blazer saved us. She stared at me, then burst into nervous laughter. This is insane. A haunted blazer is protecting us from a creepy guy? What is my life right now? I couldn't help but laugh too, though it was tinged with hysteria. I don't know, but I think Eleanor's spirit is on our side. As we caught our breath, I realized something. The blazer had bought us time, but the man still had the evidence. We needed to get it back, and fast. "We have to go after him," I said, determination hardening in my chest.
Jenna groaned.
"You've got to be kidding me. We just escaped, and now you want to go back. I know it's risky, but we're so close. Eleanor's counting on us to finish what she started." Jenna sighed, then nodded reluctantly. "All right, but this time, we're bringing backup." I raised an eyebrow. "Backup?" She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. We'll let them handle the crazy guy, and we'll focus on the ghost stuff." I smiled, relieved. Good plan. As Jenna dialed 911, I glanced back toward the house. The blazer was nowhere to be seen, but I could feel its presence, like a guardian watching over us. Whatever happened next, I knew we weren't alone. Jenna and I sat in my car, shivering from the cold and the adrenaline still coursing through our veins. The police were on their way, but every minute felt like an hour. I kept glancing toward the house, half expecting the man to come charging out after us. "Do you think the blazer's still, fighting him?" Jenna asked, her voice shaky. I shook my head. "I don't know, but I hope so. We need to get that evidence back." As if on cue, blue and red lights flashed in the distance, and 2 police cars pulled up to the house. Jenna and I jumped out, waving them down. "Over here," I called. A stern-looking officer approached us, his hand resting on his holster. "You the ones who called about a break-in?" I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, but it's more than that. There's a man inside. He attacked us, and he's got evidence about a possible crime." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Evidence? What kind of evidence?" I hesitated, realizing how crazy it sounded. "It's complicated. It's about Eleanor Harlow's death. We think she was murdered, and the man inside is involved." The officer's expression hardened. "Eleanor Harlow? That case was closed months ago. Natural causes." "But we found her journal and letters that suggest otherwise," Jenna chimed in. "Please, just check it out." He sighed, then motioned to his partner. "All right, we'll take a look. You two stay here." We watched as the officers entered the house, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Minutes passed, and my anxiety grew. What if the man had escaped? What if the blazer hadn't held him off? Suddenly, there was a commotion, shouting, the sound of a struggle, and then the officers emerged, dragging the man out in handcuffs. He was cursing and thrashing, but they had him under control. One of the officers approached us, holding the notebook and letters. "We found these on him. You were right, he was trying to destroy them." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Thank you. So, what happens now?" We'll take him in for questioning, and we'll reopen the investigation into Eleanor's death. If there's any truth to what you found, we'll get to the bottom of it." Jenna and I exchanged relieved glances. "And the house?" I asked. "Is it safe?" The officer nodded. "We've cleared it. You're free to go back in if you need to, but I'd advise against it. It's still a potential crime scene." I shook my head. "No, we're done here. But there's one more thing." I hesitated, then pointed toward the house. "There's a blazer inside. It's special. Can I take it with me?" The officer looked puzzled but shrugged. "If it's yours, sure. Just be quick." I nodded, then turned to Jenna. "Wait here. I'll be right back." She grabbed my arm. "Are you sure? What if it's still, haunted?" I smiled, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I think it's okay now. I think Eleanor's spirit was just trying to protect the truth." Jenna sighed but let go. "All right, but if you're not back in 5 minutes, I'm coming in after you." I hurried back into the house, my footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The blazer was lying on the floor in the study, right where it had fallen after saving us. I picked it up gently, feeling the soft fabric between my fingers. "Thank you," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if Eleanor could hear me. As I turned to leave, I felt a soft breeze brush past me, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a figure in the corner of the room, a woman, smiling faintly before fading away. I blinked, and she was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I like to think it was Eleanor, finally at peace. Back at my apartment, Jenna and I collapsed on the couch, exhausted but relieved. The police had taken the evidence, and the man, whose name we learned was Victor Green, a local businessman with ties to some shady dealings, was in custody. It turned out Eleanor had been investigating a corruption scandal involving Green and several town officials, including her own nephew, Jonathan Harlow. She'd gathered enough evidence to expose them, but they'd silenced her before she could go public. Thanks to us, and the blazer, the truth was finally coming to light. The police were reopening the case, and justice for Eleanor seemed within reach. "So, what are you going to do with that thing?" Jenna asked, nodding toward the blazer, which was now hanging innocently in my closet. I shrugged.
"Keep it, I guess."
It did save our lives after all. Jenna laughed, though it was tinged with disbelief. "Yeah, but it's still creepy. I mean, a haunted blazer? That's not exactly a normal wardrobe staple." I grinned. "Maybe not, but it's got character. And besides, I think Eleanor's spirit has moved on. It feels different now." As if to prove my point, the blazer stayed put for the rest of the night. No rustling, no moving, no whispering. It was just a blazer again, albeit one with a hell of a story. A few weeks later, the investigation concluded. Victor Green and his accomplices, including Jonathan Harlow, were arrested for conspiracy and murder. Eleanor's name was cleared, and the town honored her memory with a small ceremony by the lake. Jenna and I attended, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. Afterward, as we walked back to my car, Jenna nudged me. For a while there, I thought we were goners. But we made it through, thanks to your thrift store obsession. I laughed. Hey, don't knock the thrift store. It's where all the best stories come from. She rolled her eyes but smiled.
True.
So, what's next? Hunting down more haunted clothing. I shook my head, chuckling. No, I think I've had enough excitement for a while. But if I ever find another possessed blazer, you'll be the first to know. Jenna groaned playfully. Please don't. I need a break from the paranormal. As we drove away from the lake, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the Harlow house one last time. It looked less ominous now, like the shadows had lifted. I smiled to myself, knowing that Eleanor's spirit could finally rest. Back home, I hung the blazer in my closet, right at the front where I could see it. It had become a symbol of courage and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always a way to uncover the truth. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a soft rustle from the closet. My heart skipped a beat, but when I turned on the light, the blazer was still hanging there, undisturbed. I smiled, realizing it was just the wind, or maybe my imagination playing tricks. Good night, Eleanor. I whispered, feeling a warmth spread through me. And thank you. The room was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in weeks, I drifted off to sleep without fear.